Hi, I'm Kristina Cegla. I'm a certified holistic health and nutrition coach that specializes in autoimmune thyroid disease and digestive concerns like SIBO, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and candida overgrowth. There's so much information out there today about what to eat to lose weight, what diet to do for gut healing, but there's not a lot of emphasis on how to eat. I know that seems like a simple concept, but eating mindfully can help you lose weight, increase satisfaction with your meals, and improve your digestion. That means less acid reflux and less bloating and cramping after your meals. In this presentation, I'll teach you how and why you want to eat mindfully to help you lose weight, reduce bloating, and enjoy your meals more with simple and practical tools that you can implement right away. I have 20 years personal experience with living with Hashimoto's disease, and that's an autoimmune thyroid disease, and I had severe SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, and candida overgrowth. So now I work with women with Hashimoto's disease, mainly to help them improve their nutrition and mindset so that they can reach their health goals. So I use mindful eating techniques and positive thinking exercises often, and have seen really good results from my clients and even myself. For example, one client was taking digestive enzymes to help her digest her meals better, since she was always experiencing bloating, acid reflux, and fatigue after her meals. As I was working with her, we removed gluten and dairy from her meals and increased her greens and vegetables. And she even made a homemade chicken and vegetable soup and told me how bloated she felt after eating it. I told her to try some of my mindful eating techniques the next time she had that same meal. When she did that, she replied back to me and let me know she had sat down to eat, chewed really well, and she was very surprised that she didn't have any bloating and that she didn't need to take the digestive enzyme. I did let her know, sometimes when we have liquids like soups and smoothies, they can make us feel bloated because we don't always chew them very well. So just by sitting down, chewing a little bit more, slowing down with her meals, she really had this noticeable difference. That was a huge takeaway for her. And she told me she felt like in her adult life, she never even learned how to sit down to eat. She was always rushing around, very busy, eating on the go, and was never really present with her meals. So this was a huge breakthrough for her. She didn't need the digestive enzyme. She didn't notice any noticeable difference when she took that versus when she was doing the mindful eating techniques. So that was huge for her. And likewise, even in my own diet, just switching to an anti-inflammatory whole foods diet many years ago, I saw improvement in my symptoms, and I even lowered my thyroid antibody levels pretty significantly. And in order to eliminate the SIBO overgrowth, I had to do herbal supplements, antibiotics, and a very restrictive, low FODMAP, SCD, specific carbohydrate type diet. Because of that, I had to make all of my meals at home for several years. I didn't go out to any restaurants because I really couldn't eat anything. I was very, very sick with stomach cramping, intense bloating, nausea, anxiety, and panic attacks. And so this was a very, very difficult time and for me, about several years of dealing with that. I felt sick almost every time I ate. And so by trying to eliminate the bacteria overgrowth and the toxins from the bacteria die-off, it was just so intense during that period. So I stuck with cooking very simple meals, took one day at a time, and finally I was able to eradicate the overgrowth and eat without being bloated or feeling sick. So that was a huge win. During that time, that's when I really began to see how much I had relied on food, not only to soothe my emotions, but I also saw just how food connects us with others. And a takeaway from that was, when you start stripping away foods, I also started to strip away my comfort zone. So when I couldn't eat out and I couldn't eat meals with my friends and family, what they were eating, I felt very disconnected and sort of unsafe, out of my comfort zone. And it was a really strange experience to see how others took food for granted, where I was there spending all of my time thinking about what to cook, cooking all of my meals, worrying about how I would feel after eating. You get the idea. So my thoughts were consumed with food, not only about wanting to eat healthy food, but just cooking in a new way with different diet plans, trying new foods, and really just trying to heal myself in any way I could. I had to find and adopt other methods for dealing with stress and difficult emotions rather than reaching for my dark chocolate, which was my usual go-to for stressful days. So it became really apparent to me that I had relied on food, mainly sweets, to get through all of life's little stressors. And when I couldn't have that anymore, it was really scary. I pretty much had to deal with all of the emotions during that stressful time. And this was also a time when I was going back to school. I was starting my health coaching business. I was trying to get rid of the SIBO and candida overgrowth and fix thyroid issues I had going on at the time. So there were a lot of things going on, a lot of stressors, and all of the emotions that were coming up during that time. Rather than push them away or soothe myself with food, I couldn't do that anymore. And so I really had to face them and learn how to cope and manage all of these emotions. And so this is where I learned to eat mindfully. Some of the benefits were pretty amazing for me. So I'm happy to share those with all of you today. And some of the big benefits of eating mindfully are, 1, it can help you lose weight by intuitive eating. So rather than having to count calories, you can eat mindfully with nutritious whole foods. Number 2 is you can reduce bloating, stomach pains, and acid reflux. And I've had very, very good experience with this, really good results. And so that's a huge benefit there. And number 3, you can enjoy your meals more, even if you're on a restrictive diet, say gluten-free, dairy-free, if you're doing paleo, AIP, or any other diet really. You can really find more satisfaction with your meals. And learn how to appreciate the eating experience, even if you're not, eating out at restaurants or dining with friends as much as maybe you were before. And the benefit number 4 is you can reduce emotional eating and put your energy into other aspects of your life that need your attention. So let's jump in, and I'll share how to eat mindfully with some practical tips you can use right after this presentation. And so one of the biggest benefits is getting better digestion. So digestion process begins at your plate even before you eat. So by that I mean the aroma of the meal, how appealing it looks to you or not, signals to your brain and your digestive system to help prepare for food. So to help improve your digestion and increase satisfaction with your food, I'll give you some tips you can incorporate that's just going to be simple, easy things that you can do. The first one is just breathing. I know it sounds simple, we do it every day, all day long, but if there's a certain way to breathe to help you relax and get your body prepared for eating. So to set yourself up for digestive success, take a few moments before you eat just to breathe before your meals. You want them to be slow, deep belly breaths. And by doing that, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system. That system controls the rest, relaxation, and digestion for your body. And so a lot of times people are eating very rushed or in a hurried manner. Maybe they're not even sitting down to eat. If that sounds like you, then make sure that you incorporate this step into your meals. When you do that, you're sending the wrong signals to your body. You're sending the signals to your body that you're, need to be in fight or flight response, that you need to be alert and, or you're under stress. And so when you are feeling that way and sending those signals to your body, your body is not going to process digestion and make it a priority for your body. So the sympathetic nervous system inhibits digestion, and that is the system that's responsible for the fight or flight response. So if that is activated because you're busy, you're running around, you're stressed, you're looking at the TV or working while you're trying to eat, all of those things can end up leading to more bloating, acid reflux, burping, hiccups, or even overeating in one meal because you're not paying attention to the meal, you're paying attention to the TV or your work that you're working on. And so that's really, an important part of just setting up before you've even eaten the meal. You can see that already your body is primed or not for digesting it. And so the central nervous system, that includes the nerves in your brain and your spinal cord. And one part of it is the voluntary nervous system, which controls actions and thoughts that we're aware of and influence, say like moving our arms around. But another part is the autonomic nervous system. So this regulates processes we don't consciously influence, like blinking, digestion, and our heartbeat. So these are things that just, occur naturally. We don't have to think and physically make them happen. And the parasympathetic nervous system is part of that, which controls your rest, relaxation, digestion, and all of the metabolic processes so that your body can convert food into energy for you. And while the sympathetic nervous system controls fight or flight responses and prepares the body for, physical, mental activity, it also then inhibits digestion. So we really need to work on balancing those. And one way to balance that is through deep belly breaths. And so you can activate that parasympathetic nervous system that controls your digestion and relaxation just by breathing mindfully. So how do you breathe mindfully? I will walk you through it. So step number 1, you just want to inhale through the nose and hold for about 3 counts and slowly exhale, making your exhale longer than the inhale. So that's a really important tip right there, is making the exhale longer than the inhale. Some people like to hold their count for 4 or 5 counts or 5 breaths. Whatever is comfortable for you. This should be a simple and easy exercise. It shouldn't be difficult. You shouldn't be out of breath when you're doing this. And so 3 to 4 counts, breathe in through your nose slowly, hold for 3 to 4 counts, slowly exhale. Your belly will be soft and expand when you breathe in, and it's going to contract slightly when you breathe out. So you can do this with your eyes open or closed. If you're at a restaurant or with friends, I recommend leaving your eyes open. But just give yourself a few moments to do this. Take 3 to 4 slow, deep breaths before each meal. And so that's it. That's pretty simple. Just doing that can help you just begin to start giving your body the digestion that it's going to, set yourself up for digesting your meals just before you even eaten anything. So the second piece of that would be present with your meal. And so again, if you're busy rushing around, you're, driving, hopefully you're not driving and eating, but just being really present with your meal is going to be important. That's the next step for preparing your body for digestion. So take a few moments to be present with your food before actually eating, and allow yourself enough time to eat so that you're not rushing. So if you get a 15-minute break, a 30-minute lunch, plan however much time you have, and hopefully give yourself at least 30 minutes to eat. If you have less time than that, then it should really be a smaller meal or a snack. I would recommend at least 30 minutes for a full meal to sit and eat properly. But to be present with your meal, what you would like to do is 1, remove distractions. This isn't always going to happen, but as you're learning to eat mindfully, it is important to try and remove any distractions that you can. So when you're eating, you just eat. And so that means that you are not watching TV, you're not standing, you're not eating in a car, or walking, rushing around. You're going to avoid external distractions, which would be your phone, your TV again. Take all of those away from the eating equation for the first few times when you try this. And it's fine if you want to put on any relaxing music or engage with your friends and family at the table with you. That contributes to a positive dining experience. And I think that those are okay to have while you're doing this, and that helps you to just be more present with the meal. Any of those other external distractions, just remove them for a while. And number 2, use your senses. So use your senses to alert your stomach that food is coming. So this helps the stomach start creating digestive juices so that you can be able to break down the meal easier. And so through that, you use your eyes to see your food. So take notice of the nourishment you're about to receive. You can either pray or give thanks for the food. It doesn't have to be out loud. It can just be a thought in your mind. This helps create a really positive perception of the meal. And so that will make you more likely to enjoy it and feel satisfied after eating it. So just even creating that positive, thought already in the mind will help set you up for feeling satisfied when you eat. So the second would be the smell of the aroma of your meal. So take a good whiff of your meal, breathe it in. This alerts your brain that food is coming and helps prepare for digestion just by smelling it. You can usually even taste it when you smell it sometimes. You can get excited about the food and really just start to get those digestive juices going. And then, of course, when you taste your food, see if you can pick out the flavors. Is it spicy, bitter, sweet, savory, salty, or sour? Just taking a moment or two in your mind when you're eating just to think, what can I taste in this food? How does that make me feel? And these are very quick. These are simple, 1-2 second things. These aren't, it's not going to extend your lunchtime by any amount of time. It's just, these are very quick and simple things to do. And you would also want to notice the texture of your food. Is it crunchy, soft, chewy, hard? Pay attention to how the texture changes as you chew more. And so these are just some easy points that get you then to just really think and take note of your food as you're eating it, rather than looking at all the other distractions around you. And then, of course, the big one is to chew mindfully. One of the most important parts to eating mindfully is chewing your food thoroughly. So the reason for that is chewing stimulates saliva to break down the food. And that allows you to taste your food better and helps pre-digest the food before it even reaches your stomach. So in the stomach, your food is broken down by hydrochloric acid, where it then empties into the small intestine for you to be able to absorb the nutrients from what you're eating. So large pieces of food that weren't adequately chewed may not get broken down well enough in the stomach, and that causes undigested particles of food to enter into the intestines, leaving you with bloating, indigestion, and discomfort. And your salivary glands produce enzymes to help you break down the food, but it also allows you to really taste your meal. So the longer you chew the food, the more flavor you'll taste and more satisfying the meal will be. A lot of people who are taking digestive enzymes can see noticeable improvement just by chewing their food better. Your saliva has the enzymes you need to break down the food. For most people, there might be some meals, maybe if you're eating a lot of fats or a lot of protein meals, it might be helpful to do a digestive enzyme. But for most people, if you just chew your food better, do these mindful eating techniques, you most likely will not be reliant on a digestive enzyme. And you can experiment with that like my client did and see if you notice any difference. And so chewing tips, let's talk about, how you can chew more mindfully. So the first thing you can do, it's pretty simple, is just to put your fork or spoon down after each bite. And that way you're not tempted to just eat more before you finish chewing the first bite. So I myself notice when I'm eating something sweet or something that tastes really good, I'm tempted to eat faster because it's so good, you just want to eat it all very quickly. And so this is a good time to practice, chewing one, putting your food in your mouth and put your fork or your spoon down and then really just taste and chew that first bite and enjoy it before you put more into your mouth. Another thing you can do is eat with your less dominant hand. This will naturally slow down your eating process and get you to think about each bite. So I'm normally right-handed, and so what I would do is instead of eating right-handed, I would go eat with my left hand, which is my less dominant hand. And that naturally your brain is thinking, okay, what is this? This is different. I'm not on autopilot anymore. I have to think about what I'm doing. And so you just gets you to think about each bite and then chew it more while you're doing that and slowing that eating process down. And then chew each bite thoroughly. So don't worry about the number of times. Don't count your bites. Like that's just a little excessive. It's just whatever you were doing, just chew more of it. You should really look at how, go by how it feels in your mouth. So if you'll know it's chewed enough, if you can easily swallow it, the food is very soft. If you notice you're swallowing large pieces of food, or if it takes any effort to swallow, or if you feel very full immediately after eating, then you know you need to chew more. So those would be signs that you didn't chew well enough. And again, this should not be a stressful process or take any joy out of eating. Don't sit there and count 30 bites. I'm going to chew each thing for 30 times. I don't recommend that. I just recommend chewing a little bit more than you're used to. Make sure your food is soft and it's easy to swallow. And you're slowing down between bites. So you're putting your fork down or eating with your other hand. Something to help you just slow that eating process down just a little bit and then chew a little bit more. So properly digesting our food will definitely help nourish our body. But we also use food to nourish our mind and our spirit. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the psychology of eating. So we need food to physically nourish us, but we also need to be nourished in our mind and spirit in a healthy way. And so if this relationship becomes imbalanced, we might use food to solve many of our daily stressors and to regulate our moods. We may even end up with more physical digestive symptoms because of that. So who you are as an eater is just as important as what you are eating. And again, this goes back to my example I talked about before when I took a lot of foods away on this restrictive diet. As I started taking foods away, I started to realize, how much I had relied on them for getting through stressful days. I was very addicted to chocolate and sugar, which obviously was fueling the gut bacteria overgrowth I had at that time that I didn't realize. And so, it just became this huge cycle of, feeling stressed and, or sad and tired and frustrated with my body. And then I would eat things that I thought were making me feel better. But in turn, all it was doing was fueling the gut bacteria, the bloating, all of the things that were making me feel miserable in the first place. And it just became this huge cycle. And so once I was able to, get through that addiction to chocolate and caffeine and really look at adding nourishing foods back in, it opened up this whole other aspect of, the fact that I needed to look at other areas of my life that maybe were out of balance, that I had control over, and that maybe I was pushing away and was using food to just kind of, deal with it, and so to speak. And so food really is nourishment. We do need nutrient-dense food to sustain our bodily functions. And when we don't have enough of the right nutrients, we get imbalances in the body, and that's represented through physical symptoms. So like headaches or bloating or fatigue or pains. And we can remedy a lot of this just by becoming aware of the symptoms and choosing the right whole foods to replenish the imbalances. Similarly, we use food to nourish our mind and our spirit. So we connect with our friends and family over meals and create a bonding experience that really gives us joy and satisfaction in life. And think about like when we celebrate birthdays and special events, we usually have treats or champagne or wine or what have you. And so food really is woven into our daily interactions and into our way of life. So cooking for yourself and even others is even often seen as an act of love because you're nourishing the whole person, their body, mind, and spirit. And when we have imbalances in our life, just like in the body, we might end up using food as the remedy, as I was talking about. So it can be a healthy relationship with food if you are being mindful about what you're eating. However, if you're using food to fill a dissatisfied area of your life, that can lead to emotional eating or feeling stuck or trapped by your food addictions through repeated unwanted behaviors. And again, that goes back to what I was doing with eating the chocolate and sugar and just really, feeding the emotion rather than dealing with the issues that were really affecting me. And so you may have developed habits without even realizing it through repeated patterns that you're not aware of. So for example, every time you're frustrated at work, you come home, maybe you indulge in chips or candy to reward yourself or comfort yourself for enduring a difficult day. And you might not even realize the trigger, just that you have this habit of, when you get home, you want something satisfying to eat, something sweet, as soon as you walk through the door. And so eating mindfully can help you gain awareness around how you use food to nourish your mind and your body. And so I have a mindful eating guide on my website that if you're interested in learning more about any of this, you can purchase. And I have a little quiz in there that has have you answer some questions to fill out who you are as an eater. But I can go through, I've designated a few different types of eaters. And so I want to go through with you and just talk about, see if this resonates with you of who you are as an eater, and I'll give you some tips on how to be more mindful as you're eating. And so think about, are you a passive eater? So by that I mean, do you generally just, don't think about eating unless you're hungry, you don't pay attention to meals, you don't really chew thoroughly, maybe you're not even eating at a table, or you're always rushed or eating in your car. And then that usually leads to a lot of indigestion, dissatisfaction with your meals. You probably want to snack or treat during the day just to feel satisfied. So if anything of that sounds like you, then you might be a passive eater. And so how could you be more mindful? So things you would want to do is transition to eating your meals at a table. Sit down, take a few deep breaths before eating, notice the aroma, taste, and texture of your food. Chew each bite well to get maximum flavor and to help you feel more satisfied with your meal and reduce bloating and indigestion. So giving thanks for your meal if you prepared it or someone else prepared it for you is another good way. And just acknowledge the nourishment you're receiving from that meal. So that will help you go from being a passive eater to more of a mindful eater. And so if you are already a mindful eater, someone who typically prepares your own meals, you think about where you're going to eat often, you nourish your body with what makes you function well rather than relying on fad diets or good or bad food labels. Maybe you're able to eat a smaller portion size and still feel satisfied and really chew thoroughly and taste your food. That's all very great, and congratulations for being a mindful eater. But there's always room for improvement. So there's always things that we could, always a little something that we can add in. And so for someone who's already doing a lot of those things, I would recommend, to be as present with your meals as possible, acknowledging the nourishment you're going to get from the food. And so making meals more enjoyable, you can incorporate some ambiance into your meals, into the eating experience. So that could be things like maybe lighting candles, playing some music, maybe set a beautiful place setting for yourself, or have your friends and family over and cook a really large meal. And that way you bring more enjoyment and social connection into your meals, and that can help balance the need for joy and nourishment rather than, feeling so restrictive or controlling over everything that you're eating. And so if that resonates with you, definitely, try adding a little bit more of the social connection and joy into the food. And so the last one would be if an emotional eater. So, and sometimes we fluctuate between all three of these. There are times when you might be a passive eater, and the next day you're an emotional eater, and some days you're doing really good, you're a mindful eater. So you're not always just one or the other. Sometimes you're all three all at once. But you can still take all of these suggestions and incorporate them in, and it just takes practice, and over time you'll be more consistently a mindful eater. And so let's talk about an emotional eater. So emotional eaters typically will, turn to food for comfort, safety, or to bring joy into their life, and really rely on the food to provide that feeling. And so you might eat larger meals to feel more satisfied and look for sweets when you're stressed to feel better. If you fall off a diet plan or way of eating, you typically will feel bad about it, maybe even feel like you need to punish yourself. And maybe you have stomach aches or bloating because you don't chew well enough and you generally eat quickly or on the go. And so for that to be more mindful, it's really important to recognize food triggers, whether it's stress, maybe you drove by a fast food place, you're feeling bored or something else. So just really before indulging in food, ask yourself if you're really hungry. Are you bored, angry, sad? What are the emotions that are coming up? And then becoming aware of it will help you build in new habits. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this to come. But really look at ways to infuse more joy in your life instead of looking for sweets to fill that need. And so what are some hobbies or activities that you enjoy doing that you could do more often? Consider joining a church, a club, or a sports group to create more social connections. And just by adding more routine into the day around the meals, that might mean planning or preparing more of the meals at home. That can really set you up for not, reaching for foods when you have an emotional reaction, if you've already have it planned and prepped and ready for you. And so this kind of segues into emotional eating, which is the next topic I want to talk about. And it's a very big topic because I think, a lot of times we use food to deal with or fix emotions that, we don't even recognize or realize at times. And so let's look at what emotional eating actually is. So emotional eating has a very wide spectrum. It doesn't mean that you binge eat or have anorexia, although it can mean those things definitely. So any sort of binge eating, anorexia issues, all the way to food addictions, or just using food as punishment or maybe as a way of comfort or to fill a need that's lacking in your life. So a very big spectrum there. And you may be aware and intentional of the process, or you might be unknowingly using food to soothe your emotions. So obviously with binge eating or anorexia, it's very you're aware of what you're doing, and it's basically a controlling mechanism. And so then there are other times when people are just have these food addictions. Maybe they're not aware of, they're doing it, but they're not. They know they have this craving and they're just going for it, and they're not really recognizing why they're doing it. And so, for example, if say you eat a bag of candy to punish yourself for not working out or feeling ashamed of how you look, these are things that might come up often, especially even when dealing with autoimmune disease. So like I mentioned before, I have Hashimoto's, and that takes a huge toll on your body. The weight gain or weight loss, depending if you're hyper or hypo, that occurs a lot. And for me specifically, and even in clients that I work with, there's a lot of feelings of shame and frustration around body and body image that comes along with the weight gain or weight loss, that sometimes feels like it's out of your control. You're not doing anything. It's just happening because thyroid levels are going wonky. And so, I see a lot of women that will, get frustrated and then start to punish themselves or punish their bodies rather because, they're frustrated. And so they'll go for sugar and sweet and candy and then they feel very guilty and that really doesn't set the right stage for then wanting to eat healthy and eat nourishing foods because you're just so frustrated at this body that's doing all these crazy things that you don't feel like you have control over. And so those are things that come up very often when I work with my clients and even in myself that I experienced. And so, to help you reach your weight loss goals, one of the things that's really important is to build a positive body image and a positive, thought process. And so, sure, sweets are known to make us feel happier. They light up the reward centers of the brain. But constantly doing that when you feel negative thoughts and then going for sweets, it creates this repeated thought pattern that leads to actions that don't align with the goals, which then keep you stuck in this emotional eating cycle. And so, another example, you may unknowingly be indulging in sweet treats to replace the lack of a close relationship that maybe you've been wanting. So in that example, you just feel addicted to sugar, and when you're sad or lonely, you indulge, but maybe you're not sure why. And so, whether your emotional eating is intentional or you've created, these repeated behavior patterns or thought patterns, you can use mindful eating techniques to help you create new thought habits, new thought patterns and habits. So the underlying reasons for emotional eating aren't necessarily about an addiction to certain foods, although it can feel like it, especially with sugar. It can stem from imbalances in your life that you want to be different. So you want to get to the root cause of your emotional eating, and you can make positive changes to help you reach the desired outcome. And so, a lot of it is about creating balance in your life. And so there's a lot of different parts of our life. There's our career, our finances, our creativity, our joy, our social life, relationships, home environment, our health, our physical activity. These are all, and even spirituality. So these are a huge, areas of our life that is outside of food. So really all of these things that bring us joy or satisfaction, none of those are specifically foods or things that we're eating. But if they're out of balance, then we can tend to go to food, because food can have such a quick, immediate effect to make us feel better and comforted. And so you can see as things in these areas of your life, if they become imbalanced, it's really easy then to kind of turn to food as a way to, make you feel better, although it doesn't change the fact that these things are still out of balance. And so a good exercise would be to really take note of these areas of your life that maybe you think are imbalanced. Write it down, put it on a piece of paper. How are you feeling in other areas of your life? And really just to reflect and do a journal activity, or, write down 3 parts of your life that you're satisfied with and 3 parts of your life that you're dissatisfied with. And just by doing that, it can point out, the direction that you need to go and the steps that you might need to take in order to bring balance to those areas. And a couple of discussion questions, that you might want to, write down or think about or just journal on, like what is working and going well for you? How are your daily habits influencing your dissatisfied areas? And can you pinpoint any triggers from the dissatisfied areas that are contributing to the emotional eating? So in one of the examples I gave, you say someone was unhappy at work, and so had a rough day, and then they came home and ate chips or cookies or sweets. They were craving it. And so if you really sat down, wrote this out, gave yourself time to reflect on it, and you started to realize, okay, every time I have a stressful day, I feel like I'm coming home and wanting to crave sugar or sweets. That's huge already, just being able to recognize that trigger. And maybe you can't avoid the trigger because you still have to go to work, but you can then change the reaction that you have. Instead of grabbing something sweet, you can maybe look for something that's healthier, like applesauce, or a healthy muffin that homemade healthy muffin, or something else that's sweet tasting, that can be a healthier option that will still allow you to get to your health goals, whether it's you want to lose weight or work out or stay on this restrictive diet for whatever reason that you're doing it. And so it's just by being able to ask a few questions of yourself, to really look inward, take a moment to analyze and reflect on your life and areas that are satisfied and dissatisfied to you, can really set you up to start to recognize where maybe emotional eating is coming into play in your life. And so once you've done that, I have some tools and information to help you build better habits. And so to build better habits, I have a 4-step tool. It's called QUIT, Q-U-I-T, and that's question your cravings, understand your cravings, initiate a new response, and trial and error. And so to question your cravings is really before you indulge, just take a moment and pause and observe yourself and your thoughts, and just be non-judgmental and ask what triggered it. And just by doing that, you're questioning the cravings and taking that moment before you indulge in anything. This step gets you to be aware of how your emotions are then impacting your behavior. So just becoming aware of it. And then understand your cravings. So understand the triggers. So by recognizing the patterns to the emotional eating, you can then recognize and understand your triggers. So are you, sad or lonely? Are you frustrated? Are you angry? Understanding the emotions and how they impact your food choices really helps you find other ways to soothe the emotions. And this will help you feel more in control of your choice rather than having the craving have control over you. And then the third one is the biggest one. That's initiate a new response. And so initiating a new response before you indulge in the craving, it's really the most important step. And so look at ways that you want to basically remove the unwanted pattern, and you want to create new thought processes and new patterns. So this will have a positive impact. And so instead of, when you're lonely or sad that you indulge, instead call a friend or family member, maybe go for a walk, whatever it is that you need. So make a list ahead of time. Usually I like to have people write down a list of 5 new reasonable actions you can take, something that's easy. So when you have a trigger or craving that occurs, you want to have 5 reasonable things that you can do. And maybe it's put on your favorite music, your favorite song, dance around a little bit, something really simple, quick, and easy that will just put that new thought pattern into play instead of reaching for and grabbing what you're going to eat. And then 4 is trial and error. And so this is just where you're continually practicing. Maybe the first newest response that you did didn't work and you still felt the craving. That's okay. Just go down your list and try another one, or try 2 or 3. And so just keep going. Eventually, as you do these things, it takes practice, and then you will eventually build these new habits in. So by building these new habits, then you're able to break that cycle of that emotional eating response and really give you back control. And so this is all about becoming more mindful about your cravings and allow you to have control and replace the old pattern of behavior with something new. And that will hopefully align your actions and create and balance those dissatisfied areas of your life. And so the other thing you can do for mindful eating is just to really, have a good eating experience. And so that's, again, putting on music or setting the dining table with a nice place setting, lighting some candles, all these things, that restaurants do all the time, is to create a very pleasurable eating experience. And just by doing that, you're adding more joy into the meals and more satisfaction. And you're setting yourself up, your perception of the meal is already much greater than it would be if you were to say just to sit down at an empty table with, a boring looking meal. Like already you're just like not very happy and excited to eat that meal. And restaurants use this a lot of times. They put all of your food on white plates, and that's because it makes it look more appealing. So I definitely recommend, if you want to go invest in new plates or bowls, get white ones. If you have colored ones, switch to white. It really makes natural foods just show so much more. You can see their vibrant colors. It looks more appealing. And then just set the table. Take a few moments, to put down a nice place setting, or turn on some nice calming music before you eat. And that's really going to create a positive perception. The other thing you can do is use smaller dishes. So especially if you're dieting or eating smaller meals, because you're trying to lose weight or for dealing with bloating or any restrictive diet, if you put the same meal on a large plate and it therefore looks very small, it's going to feel very sad as you eat it. You're not going to feel very full after that. And so if you take that same meal, put it in a very small dish, it looks like more food. It's very, the volume of food looks larger. And so that in turn makes you feel like I'm eating a lot of food. This meal is satisfying. And so then you won't need to go back for seconds or eat more, unless you really do feel hungry. But that will help to create that positive perception that then, can help prevent overeating. And then finally, another thing would be to remove good and bad food labels. And so food really is not inherently good or bad. Sure, there's healthier foods or, worse foods to eat. But by saying foods are bad, or I can't have this food, or I shouldn't eat this food, really what you're hearing is I'm bad for eating this food. So if you eat something bad that you've deemed or labeled bad and you do end up eating it, that can in turn make you feel like you're bad, like you're a bad person for eating this. And so that can really just fuel that emotional eating, or, wanting to then fall off the diet, or I'll just try later, or I can't do this. It just really starts as negative response. And so what I like to tell clients is, let's remove the good and bad food labels and instead replace it with, this might not be the best food for me right now, or, I choose not to eat this food because it doesn't make me feel well, or some other type of language that's similar to that really then puts you back in control of the food rather than having the food then control you. And that's really important, a really important mindset trick that you can use as you go through any sort of diet or healing type of diet that you're on. And so, replacing feelings of guilt and shame is another big one that you want to do, especially if you're dealing with any sort of emotional eating. And so it's really important to just acknowledge any feelings that you're having. If you are feeling guilty because you ate something that maybe didn't make you feel well, or that you didn't really want to eat but you did anyway. So acknowledge the feelings, really understand them, and then forgive yourself. That's a big one. So just forgive yourself right away. Replace the negative feelings with something positive. Say something nice to yourself, give yourself a compliment, and remind yourself there are no bad foods. So just reinstating that self-trust. Create a plan of action to help you avoid those foods that didn't work, in the future. And, just remembering what your triggers are, create a plan to initiate a new response next time. All of those things are really going to help set you up to just rebuild that self-trust again and help you eliminate those feelings of guilt and shame going forward. And so we talked about, another thing you could do is just to get social. So making food, a connection. So having people over to your house to eat, and if you can't go out to a restaurant, or especially if you're on restrictive diets, bringing that ambiance in, bringing the food and the connections with your family and friends over, to your house, or maybe go to their house, get that satisfaction with your meal is really about how connected you feel either to the food or to the environment that you're in. And so if you constantly are eating alone, or, eating on the rush or on the go, see if there's ways where you can bring some more social aspect into it. Can you meet a friend for lunch? Can you, bring some music, something that you like to listen to, into your meals? And just really find another way to bring some sort of joy into the dining experience. And that can really help with feeling satisfied with the meal, especially if you're on some sort of restrictive or elimination type diet. And then the final thing you can do is just look at your food presentation. You can always put food in a fun glass or dish. If you have, obviously use the white plates, for getting the vibrant colors of the food. But any sort of, if you have wine, put water in a wine glass if you're not drinking wine. That at a party, that is really another fun way to stick to not having wine, but you can still be part of the party. And just look at any fun dishes that you have that maybe you can help to make food look more fun and appealing. Maybe put a smoothie in a wine glass. That can be more exciting and fun looking than just in a regular glass. So these are all just sort of think of food presentation ideas like as you would see at a restaurant or something, to help with being more mindful about the meal, enjoying the meal more, and using the small dishes again for snacks, and putting your snacks in a small dish rather than just eating out the bag is another way to be more mindful about what you're eating. And so you'll notice improved digestion and less bloating. So if you incorporate all of these things into your meals, of course it takes practice, infusing joy and satisfaction to your meals, creating that nice ambiance into your eating experience, using that 4-step quit tool to help you break through cravings. You'll do all of these things as you go forward, and of course, slow down when you're, eating, do some breathing exercises beforehand, chew more thoroughly, all of those things to help bring mindfulness into your meals. And I think once you do that, you'll realize eating is more than just about food. It's an experience that will nourish your body, mind, and spirit. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. If you would like to learn more about mindful eating, please check out my website. It's mindfulthyroid.com. I do have an Eating Mindfully guide available. It runs through all this information, plus some. You're welcome to purchase that from my website, or reach out to me at mindfulthyroid.com. I have a contact page. I love to answer any questions that you might have. And I thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you.